All right, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
It's okay. Okay, Hare Krishna, we'll begin.
Okay, so we can start.
We can start, yes, please.
Okay. Narayana namaskritya narachaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayat nashtaprayesva bhadresu nityam bhagavatam sevaya bhagavate uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So we are reading from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 1, Chapter 16, verse 7. Chapter 16 is entitled, How Parikshit Maharaj Received the Age of Kali. And text 7 is on the screen, which says, Shudra Yushamdrinam Angam Matshyanam Ritam Ichatam Iho Pahuto Bhagavan Mrityo Samitra Karmani Shudra Yushamdrinam Angam Matshyanam Ritam Ichatam Iho Pahuta Bhagavan Mrityo Samitra Karmani Shudra Yushamdrinam Anga Marshyanam Ritam Ichatam Iho Pahuto Bhagavan Mrityo Samitra Karmani. Word for word translation. Shudra, very small. Ayusham, of the duration of life. Nrinam, of the human beings. Anga, O Sutta Goswami, Marshyanam, of those who are sure to meet death, Ritam, eternal life, Ichatam, of those who decide, Iha, hearing, Upahuta, called for being present, Bhagavan, representing the Lord, Mrityu, the controller of death, Yamaraj, Samitra, suppressing, Karmani, performance. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Laesi Bhakti Vedanta Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by calling the controller of death Yamaraj. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The living entity, as it develops from lower animal life to a higher human being, gradually to a higher intelligence, becomes anxious to get free from the clutches of death. Modern scientists try to avoid death by physiochemical advancement of knowledge. But alas, the controller of death, Yamaraj, is so cruel that he does not spare even the very life of the scientist himself. The scientist who puts forward the theory of stopping death by advancement of scientific knowledge becomes himself a victim of death when he is called by Yamaraj. What to speak of stopping death? No one can enhance the short period of life even by a fraction of a moment. The only hope of suspending the cruel slaughtering process of Yamaraj is to call him, to hear and chant the holy name of the Lord. Yamaraj is a great devotee of the Lord, and he likes to be invited to kirtans and sacrifices by the pure devotees who are constantly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, the great sages, headed by Shunaka and others, invited Yamaraj to attend the sacrifice performed at Naimisaranya. This was good for those who did not want to die. Om Gyana Timaridasya Gyanan Gyanashalakaya Chakshuramalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavansya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahogana Ragunastam Bitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahogana Lalita Sri Vishakam Bitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swaminiti Namine Namaste Krishna Jaya Prabhupada Sri Tadmane Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tetareti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvase Sasuyavadi Pasachade Satarini Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namini gauratize namaha. Nityanando vatutendur vasuda pranavalabhaha Janaviri Jivita Pati Krishna Prema Pradam Prabhu Padmavati Sutastramam Sachirananda Pravajaha Bhavom Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gora Kelevaraha Advaitam Harina Dvaita Racharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaktavatharamitam Samarveta Acharya Shraye Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanitraya Namaste Pankajagraye Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pango Mama Madirgati Masarvaswa Padam Bhujo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vendaranya Kalpadurmanda SRIMAD Radhadgara Simhastanastao Srila Govinda Devo Prishchali Bhirsivya Manosmarami Srimam Rasarasaram Vivam Sivata Tatastita Karsam Venuswanai Gopi Gopinata Sriyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishnamai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraham Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sianwaita Gadadhar SRIVAS Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by calling the controller of death Yamaraj. Mugam karoti vachalam pangum lagayete grim yakri patamahan vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyapta Yena Characharam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to this SRIMAD Bhagavatam class. And before we proceed to say something for our own purification and probably for the benefit of the audience, we seek the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis so that we may be able to execute this very important function of representing Srila Vyasadeva. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami prayed Durgami Patime Indasya Sakalat Pada Gate Muhur Swa Kripa Yasti Danena Santa Santu Avalambalam. That my path is very difficult. I am blind and my feet are slipping every moment. Therefore, I need the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the stick of mercy of the Vaishnavas as my support so that I can execute this function of representing Srila Vyasadeva. So, Sutta Goswami, O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by calling the controller of death Yamaraj. So, Yamaraj is one of the Lokapalas. Lokapalas means the governors of the universe. The governors of the universe, they are in charge of the universal administration. Actually, they are called Chira Lokapalas. Chira Lokapalas means that they rule as long as the universe is there. They're the rulers as long as the universe is there, for a long period of time. So Yamaraj is one of those governors of the universe. And his business is to take care of the sinful people. So here it is said that there are those men who desire freedom from death, and therefore they want eternal life. And how do they escape the slaughtering process that Yamaraj has put in place? They escape it by inviting Yamaraj. So, in other words, you have to make friends with Yamaraj. If you make friends with Yamaraj, then you can escape the slaughtering process of death. Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purport the development of consciousness of the living entity from lower animal life to higher animal, to the human platform. And they said the living entity as it develops from lower animal life to a higher human being, and gradually to the intelligence becomes anxious to get free from the consciousness of death. The animals are also afraid of death, but the fear of death is more prominent in human beings. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that a spirit soul deluded by Maya passes through 5 distinct stages of consciousness. So the first stage is called Achadita Chetana. Chetana means consciousness. Achadita Chetana means covered consciousness. They have consciousness, but their consciousness is covered. These are examples of trees, plants, stones, rocks. And examples are Ahalya, Yamala Arjuna trees, Saptatala Vriksha trees. These are all examples of Achadita Chetana, covered consciousness. Then from there, they rise to the second level, which is called Sankuchita Chetana. Sankuchita Chetana, contracted consciousness. There is consciousness, but it is contracted, it's restricted. E.g., the birds, the beasts, reptiles, aquatics, insects, they all have consciousness. And they all almost always do the same things as human beings: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But their consciousness is contracted or restricted. Then the third stage of developing consciousness is called Mukulita Chetana. Mukulita Chetana means budding consciousness. The consciousness is becoming developed. He is becoming aware of his environment, he's becoming aware of life after death and so many other things. And that is where human life begins from. Mukulita Chetana. Those are ordinary human beings who are not into, their consciousness is actually not awakened yet. They are human beings, all right, but their higher consciousness is not awakened. They are not thinking about the soul. They're not thinking about Krishna consciousness. They're not thinking about God consciousness. They are still almost on the animal platform, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That is their main business. But the next stage, which is called Vikashita Chetana. Vikashita Chetana means unfolded, blossoming consciousness. Unfolded, blossoming consciousness. Consciousness is blossoming, but is not fully unfolded. That means people who are engaged in spiritual practices, but they have not yet come to the level of realizing practically that they are different from the body. They have not yet come to the level of realizing that Krishna is indeed there, is real, soul is real, spiritual activities are real. They have not yet come to that level. The final level of consciousness is called Purna Vikashita Chetana. Purna Vikashita Chetana, which means fully blown, blossoming consciousness. Fully blown, blossoming consciousness. These are those who are in full consciousness. So, those who are in full consciousness, they are not affected by Yamaraj. Yamaraj has nothing to do with them. Purna Vikashita Chetana, they are Bhava Bhaktas. They are Krishna conscious devotees. They are perfected beings. And so Yamaraj has no business with them. They are actually friends to Yamaraj. Those who are Vikashita Chetana, they are Sadhana Bhaktas. They are practicing Krishna consciousness, but they have not yet fully developed their Krishna consciousness. And so they still have some fear of Yamaraj. They are afraid that they may lose their physical bodies. They are afraid that they may lose their relationships. Their relations, family relations, friends, society, and so on. Of course, those who are Mulikata Chetanas, they are on a lower platform of human beings, just eating, sleeping, and mating. So they are afraid, fully afraid of Yamaraj. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, human life begins from the budding consciousness, although they are not yet spiritually awake. And these are called Upadi Jivas. Upadi Jivas, same thing as Bada Jivas. Bada Jivas, conditioned souls. So these Upadi Jivas or Bada Jivas, by the practice of Krishna consciousness, by sadhana bhakti, they can progress to the platform of Bada Muktas. Bada Muktas. Bada Muktas means they are on the path of liberation, even though some conditioning is still there, but they have made substantial progress on the path of liberation. So they are described as Bada Muktas. They are conditioned souls that are just about to be freed from the influence of Yamaraj. And with further practice or further advancement, they become Nitya Muktas. Nitya Muktas are the liberated souls. Nitya Muktas, they become qualified, eligible to regain their spiritual status, to regain the spiritual world, to regain Krishna's association. So, but on the platform of the Upadi Jivas or Nitya Bada's platform, the fear of death is very prominent. The fear of death is very prominent. So, why is the fear of death prominent in the lives of the Upadi Jivas? SRIMAD Bhagavatam tells us, Bayam Dvitiya Bivanishyat Eshat Apetasya Vipariya Yosmritihi. Fear arises when a living entity misidentifies himself as a material body because of absorption in the external illusory energy of the Lord. When the living entity turns his attention away from the Supreme Lord, he also forgets his own identity as servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this bewildering, fearful condition is affected by the illusory potency called Maya. Therefore, an intelligent person should, by all means, engage in devotional service to the Lord in order to get free of this illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Nava-Yujendras, the 9 sons of Rishabhadev, Lord Rishabhadev had 100 sons. Some of them were Kshatriyas, some of them were Brahmanas, and some of them were actually sages. So Lord Rishabhadev demonstrated that birth is not a qualification of one's ashram or one's varna. The Smarta Brahmanas, they claim that you must be born in a Brahmana family to become a Brahmana. But long ago, Rishabhadev, he demonstrated. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he brought forth different categories of children. He had 100 sons, and out of these 100 sons, 9 of them became sages, a number of them became Brahmanas, and a number of them became Kshatriyas. So it's not by birth that one can qualify as a Brahmana. It's by qualification. So when the Nava-Yujendras visited King Nimi, this is very nicely described in the 11th canto of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam. the Nava Yogendras appeared in the sacrificial arena of King Nimi. And King Nimi considered himself very fortunate. So King Nimi began to ask the Nava Yogendras similar questions. How can one escape the slaughtering process of Yamaraj? How can one escape the repeated visit of Yamaraj Loka? How can one avoid encountering the Yamadutas? And these intelligent 9 sons of Rishabhadev, who were well versed in the scriptures, they began to speak. Manye kutaschit bhayam achutasya padam bujo pa sham atranityam. That one whose intelligence is constantly disturbed by his false identification with the temporary material world can achieve real freedom from the fear of Yamaraj only by worshiping the lotus feet of the infallible Lord. Achutasya, achutasya. Padam bojo, achutasya. By worshiping the lotus feet of Achuta, Lord Achuta, one can become free from the fear of death. And Kavi is the leader of these 9 Yogendras, Nava Yogendras. He's a leader. Kavi went on to say, he glorified devotional service. He went on to say that devotional service is so powerful that there is no loss or blunder on the path of bhakti. Yan astaya narora jan na pramedyeta karichit. Davan nimiliana metre na sakalam na patet iha. He said, "O king, one who accepts this process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead will never blunder on this path, even while running with his eyes closed. He will never trip or fall." In other words, there is no loss in the practice of bhakti. Whatever endeavor we are putting into the process of bhakti, it is our property. It's our permanent property. We may accumulate so much wealth in this world, accumulate so much education, acquire all the best certificates, occupy the best position, but all of these things will not go with us when Yamarai calls. When Yamarai calls, all these things are left behind. But anything we perform in devotional service, it is permanent. There is no loss at all. So therefore, Kavi is saying that by the performance of devotional service, one earns an eternal credit that can protect him from visiting Yamaraj. A question is asked in the Vedanta Sutra. Anishtadi karinam apicha shrutam. What is the fate of those who do not perform Ishta Puja? Ishta Puja means worship of the Supreme Lord. What is the fate of those who do not perform pious activities, who do not have any devotional credit? What is the fate of such people? In other words, if people refuse to engage in devotional service, if people avoid the process of bhakti, If people look down on the process of bhakti, what is their fate? And Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan gives the answer. He says, Samya mane tu anubuya terisham aroha varohau tat gati darshanat. He said there are regular visitors to Samyanapuri. There are regular visitors to Samyamanapuri. Samyamanapuri is the abode of Yamaraj. The abode of Yamaraj is called Samyamanapuri. Some places they say Samyamani, Samyamani. Some places they say Samyamana, Samyamanipuri or Samyamanapuri. That is the abode of Yamaraj. So those who do not have any spiritual credit, those who do not engage in Ishta Puja, those who avoid devotional service, they are regular visitors to the abode of Yamaraj. And Yamaraj himself also made a similar statement in the Katha Upanishads. Actually, the Katha Upanishad is said to be spoken by Yamaraj. You know, the Upanishads are spoken by different authorities. So it is said that the Katha Upanishads was spoken to Nachiketa, who was banished by his father because he was sent to go and bring wood for sacrifice. His father was a great priest, and he sent him out to go and bring firewood for a sacrifice. And the boy delayed. Nachiketa delayed in bringing the firewood for the yagya. So the father banished him. The father said, "Get out of my face. Get lost." And the son said, "Where should I go?" He said, "Go to Yamaraj." It means he should die. Go to Yamaraj. I don't want to see you. So this boy, somebody either he went to Yamaraj Loka. At that time, Yamaraj was out of town. Yamaraj has gone to attend to some business somewhere. He was not there. So for 3 days, this boy was at the gate of Yamaraj, waiting for Yamaraj. And when Yamaraj came back, he saw Nachiketa standing at his gate. Then he asked him, "What do you want?" He said, "Well, my father said I should come and see you. So I've come." "For what?" "Well, I don't know. He just said I should come to you, so I've come." And Yamaraj said, "Get back. Go back to your father. Tell him you have seen me." And the boy said, "Well, once I've seen you, I can't go back without anything. I need to know how one can transcend death." And Yamaraj said, "You are too young to understand this. You're too young. This knowledge is not for small children. You can understand it." And the boy insisted. He said, "Once I've come to your abode and I've seen what is happening in your abode, I'm no more a small boy. I've grown. And therefore, I need that knowledge. So please do me a favor. I can't go back to my father without this knowledge. Maybe if I go back to my father with some knowledge, some information, my father may receive me back. But if I just go back as I've come, there is no guarantee that he will take me back." So on the argument of this Nachiketa, Yamaraj spoke the Katha Upanishads. So in the Katha Upanishads, Yamaraj says, "Nan sampraya pradibati balam pramadyatam vita mohina mudam." That the path of liberation does not appear before a childish fool. So, he was speaking to a child. Yamaraj is speaking to Nachiketa. He says, the path of liberation does not appear before a childish fool, intoxicated by the illusory energy of the Lord in the form of beauty, wealth, education, and high birth. He who thinks this is the only well, there is no any other well beyond this well, Yamaraj says, such a soul falls into his control again and again and again. So this was one of the verses Yamaraj spoke to Nachiketa. So it is interesting that one can avoid Yamaraj by engaging in devotional service. Actually, the third canto and the fifth canto describes the journey to Samyani Puri. The third canto, 30th chapter of SRIMAD Bhagavatam, and 26th chapter of the fifth canto of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev describes in detail the journey, very rough, tough, miserable journey to the abode of Yamaraj. Tayor Nibina Hirdayas, Tanjanai Jata Veputu, Pati Swabi Bishak Mana, Arto Gam Swam Anushmaram. Kapila Dev is saying, while carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road, he is bitten by his dogs to remind him of his sinful activities. And he is thus distressed unlimitedly. Furthermore, he says, should treat Priyato Rika Danvanai. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fire on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk. And he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no food, no shelter on that road. And it is said that that road from the earth planet to Yamaraj Loka is 792,000 miles. 792,000 miles from the earthly planet to Yamaraj Loka, Samyani Puri. And one has to go through this in a very distressful, painful path, experiences. So therefore, it is said, one has to pursue spiritual life. One has to pursue bhakti. One has to pursue the path of sadhana in order to escape the slaughtering process of Yamaraj. In fact, it is said that in the spiritual world, there is no fear of old age. There is no fear of death. One crosses beyond all these material circumstances. There is no anxiety of any sort. There is no shortage of food or drink. The residents of the spiritual sky enjoy spiritual bliss unlimitedly. It is just the opposite of the experience we have in this world. So instead of the scientists developing physiochemical processes to overcome death, the easy process is to take to the process of bhakti. Because that is our real business. That's the real business of the human being. to be engaged in Krishna's service. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. By engaging in Krishna consciousness, one will develop knowledge and detachment, causeless knowledge and detachment from the material world, and one will be freed from the influence of Yamaraj. Actually, it is said that Yamaraj, he is a loyal servant of Krishna. He's a pure devotee. So he recognizes other pure devotees. And he appreciates other pure devotees. So it is mentioned how the sages of Naim and Serenya, they invite Yamaraj to participate in their discussion, to participate in their sacrifices, to participate in their Bhagavat Katha. There is an interesting story of Yamaraj participating in Kirtan in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes a very interesting story in relationship to the deliverance of Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai, everybody knows how sinful they were. It is actually said that the scribes, Chitragupta is the chief secretary of Yamaraj, and under him there are hundreds of thousands of scribes, because Chitragupta alone cannot record all the activities of the living entities in the universe. So he has many, many scribes, secretaries under him. But it is said that these thousands of scribes, they were not strong enough, they were not capable of keeping track of the sinful activities of Jagai and Madai. Their sinful activities was just like a torrential rain that the scribes of Chitragupta were bewildered. They could not catch up. They could not cope with the sinful activities of Jagai and Madai. So when Jagai and Madai were delivered by Nimai Pandit, Yamaraj was amazed the mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was ecstatic to see the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he had asked his secretary, Chitragupta, that please, can you tell me what is the extent of the sins of these two outstanding sinners, Jagai and Madai? And Chitragupta told Yamaraj, sorry, it is a futile attempt trying to compute or tabulate the sins of these two persons. In fact, the scribes under me, they are unable to cope up with the volumes of sins these two guys commit daily. But it's amazing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu absorbed all these mountains of sins and delivered these two very sinful people. So witnessing this great compassion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Yamaraj fainted. He fainted on his chariot. And Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur further went on to describe how when these two sinful guys were delivered, it was actually became a festival in the heavenly planets. The demigods were singing and dancing because everyone in the universe knew of these two sinful guys, Jagai and Madai. So the demigods, Indra, Brahma, Shiva, Narada, they were all engaged in kirtan. They had seen the power of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan, and so they all joined in the kirtan. And then they were proceeding to Yamaraj Loka to inform Yamaraj what had happened. But when they got to Yamaraj Loka, they saw that Yamaraj was in coma. He had fainted. So they asked Chitragupta, what happened to your boss? What happened to your master? And Chitragupta explained that actually the compassion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in delivering these two sinful people is so much that Yamaraj was in ecstasy and he fainted. So what to do? They have come to inform him of the deliverance of these two sinful people, and now he is in trance, he is in coma. But since Narada Muni is there, Narada Muni knows the signs of awakening people from trance. So he went very close to Yamaraj's ear and he chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra very loudly into the ear of Yamaraj. And immediately, Yamaraj came back to external consciousness. And when Yamaraj came back to external consciousness, he started a kirtan, very special kirtan, that all the demigods who came to see him, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, everyone, there was such a powerful kirtan, and they danced and enjoyed and celebrated the liberation of Jagai and Madai. So therefore, inviting Yamaraj for sacrifices, inviting Yamaraj for kirtan, inviting Yamaraj for devotional service, as it is said in this verse, is the means by which to actually gain the favor of Yamaraj. And when one gains the favor of Yamaraj, then he can avoid the slaughtering process of Yamaraj. My time is up. It's almost 1 o'clock, 1 hour. So any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Oh my goodness. So much Leela, so much pastimes. And the text and the purport themselves like brought out so many questions. And on top of that, your lecture also brought up so many questions. So we see devotees, please indicate by raising your hand, and then you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question. But what you see, in this world, we have medical doctors who to take care of those who are sick.
Yeah.
Now, this Yamaraj, I do not want to see Yamaraj. Now, this Yamaraj, he's in charge of taking us away. Now, does he also die? Does Yamaraj die? And
He died.
And if he dies, what happens? What happens to his position? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, even like Brahma also dies. Brahma dies. Yamaraj dies. Indra dies. They're all.
I mean, he would die, but will he die before Lord Brahma? Because as long as Lord Brahma lives, there will still be 11 entities. And so if Yamaraj dies before Lord Brahma, then how do living beings change bodies?
Yes. That's why they are called Shira Lokapalas. Shira Lokapalas means they rule for a very long time. So his position somebody must always be there, because there will always be living entities that require his attention. So he will be among the last people to leave the universe. They will be there till the end of the universe. When the universe is about to be destroyed, then he dies. Because for Brahma, he will transfer all the residents on his planet, Satyaloka, to the spiritual world at the time of annihilation. Yamaraj is said to be a pure devotee, so he also goes back to Godhead at the end of his service. But that is at the end of the universe. When the universe is brought to a close, then he also goes back home, because this is a very tough service he's doing. So he's there from the beginning to the end, because he has to take care of the changing bodies, changing circumstances, punishments, and so on and so forth. So he's there from the beginning to the end. And if so, for some reason he is absent, immediately somebody takes up his position. Yeah. Like when he was cursed to become Vidura,
yeah,
somebody took his position.
Yeah.
So somebody must always be there to do that service, definitely.
Okay, so the role will continue going on, but the personality may be changed.
Change. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with any question? Anyone? Man, I think this class should bring out lots of questions, but the words are quiet. I mean, like I said, I have so many questions. I do not want to take over the entire floor.
Okay.
But it seems to me that Yamaraj could either be bribed or be pleased to such a point that the time allotted to a particular soul may be prolonged. Because in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying that the sages, they invited Yamaraj because he's a devotee. He also likes to participate in kirtans. And moreover, those who were present, they benefited, because those who want to avoid Yamaraj, when Yamaraj visits the kirtans and the sacrifices, then they become freed. So which means to me, as I understand it, is that if those people there are the present when Yamaraj visits, the time for them to die may get changed, because Yamaraj has visited them and Yamaraj is pleased with their yagya. So if that is the case, then how do we relate that to no one can add or take away a second from his allotted time to live?
Well, once they are serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, once they are engaged in Krishna consciousness, engaged in bhakti, Yamaraj is pleased, and Yamaraj can give a benediction. In fact, he told his constables, the Yamadutas, that wherever Krishna consciousness is being discussed, wherever Krishna Katha is being discussed, wherever the holy names are being chanted, wherever there is some practice of bhakti, he told the Yamadutas they should not look in that direction. They have no authority there. So that means that actually the devotees, they are outside of Yamaraj's jurisdiction. They are outside of his jurisdiction. And so Krishna decides how long a devotee should live. And for Krishna, he can extend a devotee's life or shorten a devotee's life. Krishna has that ability to prolong somebody's life and also to shorten somebody's life. So for the devotees who are engaged in Krishna consciousness, Yamaraj associates with them, Yamaraj enjoys the association, but actually, because of their Krishna consciousness, they are no more under the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. And therefore, Yamaraj gives his benediction. Yamaraj, he blesses them. Continue your devotional service, continue your ecstasy. So like this, devotees can live longer. They can live extended lives. And if Krishna wishes, if Krishna wants a devotee to live a long life in order to execute his mission, that is possible. So devotees are not within the jurisdiction of Yamaraj and his administration. And so Yamaraj cannot actually determine how long a devotee should live and so on, because Krishna takes charge of that. It is said that for the sinful people, Chitragupta, he keeps the record of sinful people. But for the devotees, Krishna personally keeps their record. So it's Krishna who decides whether a devotee should live now or live tomorrow. Krishna decides that, not Yamaraj.
All right. Thank you, Prabhuji. I mean, that is very satisfactory, but it also leads to other questions. But Prabhu, please unmute.
I think I've seen Ishwara Prabhu on the platform also.
Yeah, Ishwara Prabhu is still here. I think I saw his hand up, but he lowered his hand down. So maybe he got his answer from your answering.
Well,
otherwise, Prabhuji, you may ask your question after Kavikanapur Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Isade Prabhu, for your wonderful seva.
Hare
Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
All glories to Gurudev and Sri Prabhupada. Nice to see you.
Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. So my question is that from your explanation that Krishna is directly in charge of the devotees and Yamaraj is in direct of the karmis. And also we have observed in this world that those who are very good, they have been taken early. And those people who want to control this world, who are very demoniac, they tend to stay very longer. Why Krishna is doing that? Because if he's the one in charge of the devotees and he takes them early, they're going to, bring more devotees. Like a good example is only by Data Swami Maharaj. I'm very sure if Maharaj is still around, oh my God, I don't think the preaching will still be the way it is in some part of the world. So why is Krishna taking all these great devotees fast? We need more of these people to help us. So please, Prabhu.
Thank you for your question. See, just as we need these great devotees here in this world, Krishna has some assignment for them elsewhere that we cannot imagine, that these devotees, that they have other services to do elsewhere. Krishna needs them elsewhere. Maybe within this universe, or maybe in a different universe. So Krishna, he sees the need in a particular situation, and he sees who can help, people in that universe, on that planet, in that situation, to bring them closer to Krishna. So therefore, Krishna, he moves some people this way and moves some people that way. He moves the devotees that way and moves some devotees this way. So all is within Krishna's management. So for the devotees, Krishna knows the best. He knows why he's taking a devotee early. Probably he has some more important service elsewhere. He needs the devotee to go there. So that is there. For the non-devotees who are living very long, we know that they are not under Krishna's arrangement. They are under Yamaraj's arrangement. Yamaraj allows them that long lifespan because in a previous life, they might have cultivated some credits. It is said one of the signs of a good past credit is long life. When you have long life, it means in your previous life, you've done something very wonderful. If you have good intelligence, in your previous life, you've done some punya. If you take birth in a high family, it means you've got some punya. So all of these things show that in a previous life, somebody has performed some punya. And so they are having a long life because of some credit they've performed, they've created in a previous life. And so they're enjoying that now. But alongside with that, they also have the bad side, which is the demonic side. And so now they're exhausting the credit and they're creating more problems for themselves. And so in their next lives, things will be more difficult for them. So the non-devotees are under the jurisdiction of Yamaraj, and the devotees are under the jurisdiction of Krishna. So Yamaraj, he allows people to live as long as possible based on their good karma. But for Krishna, Krishna shifts devotees around based on the service need. If the devotee service is needed somewhere else, besides this place, beside this well, Krishna will call the devotee and send him to, or reassign him to a different location where his service is most needed. It is true that certain devotees, if they were still present in this well, many things would have happened. But at least they had set the stage, they have set the standard, they have inspired some people, and some other situation requires that. So Krishna takes them out of this situation and sends them where we can say they are most needed.
Hare Krishna, thank you. I remember Sri Prabhupada saying, do not ask why, but that's a very difficult, that is a very difficult thing, because there are so many whys for Sri Krishna. Okay.
Yes, Sade Babu, I was about to tell Maharaj that if I meet Krishna, first thing I will ask him, why did you take his pure devotee first?
You'll be so blissful that you forget. When you meet Krishna, you'll be so happy, you'll be so blissful that you will not remember to ask him this question.
All right, Madam Sunita, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Krishna Mataji.
Nice
to
Thank
see
you
you.
much for the nectar. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So how are you?
I'm okay, Maharaj. I'm okay. And how are you?
We are also managing by Krishna's mercy. Happy to see you. I'm seeing Govinda Prabhu driving there and listening at the same time. He's doing double job.
Yes, always.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please, I have a question. But
Okay.
yeah, the question is not about this test. Your previous time, your previous day you came for visit. Yeah, you talk about Haridas Thakur.
Okay.
Yeah. So my question is, you know, Haridas Thakur, he's a Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying Haridas was he was doing offering, was doing offering, and the Tosi
And
fell
it
down.
also fell on the ground.
Yeah, he took it and just replaced it.
Yes.
He didn't wash it.
Yes.
I don't know why he didn't wash it, but I cannot get, you know. Yeah. So my question is, so because of that, he becomes
Haridas. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so he became a Haridas.
Yes.
So I don't know, because what I know is when you do offering, after doing the offering, you do offering, you put your spiritual master there and you do your offering, offer to spiritual master, because you are not qualified to serve Krishna.
That's
so
true.
your spiritual master do for you. You pray to your spiritual master to do the offering for you. And after that, you pray for forgiveness. That spiritual master should forgive me, pray for you, so that Krishna will forgive only offenses you do in doing the offering.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether Haridas, he do pray for Krishna and Krishna did not forgive him, so that he become Haridas Thakur. Or Krishna just want Haridas to become like that, so that the his pastime is going on, because I know Haridas chants so many rounds a day, because he is not ordinary. He do so many wonderful things. So I don't know. Krishna want him to be. Krishna want him to pray these pastimes, or I don't know. Or
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you. I understand your question.
Yeah.
I will answer. Thank you. Actually, Haridas was a multi-dimensional personality. Yeah, he was considered an incarnation of Brahma and an incarnation of Prahlad, and also there's a book written by Jagadananda who described this previous life of Haridas. That Haridas was a great Brahmana in his previous life, and he made that mistake of the tulsi plant dropping on the ground. He picked it up. Instead of washing it, he didn't wash it. He placed it back on the offering. And because of that offense, he had to take a low breath. So all of these things are possible because Krishna wanted to use him.
Okay.
Yes. Krishna wanted to show that birth does not matter, because it is also mentioned that because Brahma participated in Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and he committed an offense. When Brahma stole the cowherd boys and the cows and hid them in a cave, it is considered an offense to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, and then in this write-up, it is also mentioned that because that Brahmana committed an offense, he has to take birth as Haridas. So Brahma came as Haridas because in the Vrindavan Leela, he committed an offense at the lotus feet of Krishna. So this time around, he wanted to participate in Krishna's pastimes, but he wanted to take a very humble position. So the understanding is that whether it is in a previous life he was a Brahmana, whether he's incarnating directly as Brahma or from Brahma, but the important message here is that some offense was committed. And because of that offense, he had to take a humble birth. But that humble birth is actually Krishna's mercy. Because of Haridas's humility, he could chant the holy names unlimitedly. Because of his humility, he became the Nama Acharya. Because of his humility, he changed many, many hearts. So, whichever platform Haridas is coming from, whether Brahma became the Brahmana before he became Haridas, or whether the Brahmana came as Haridas and Lord Brahma also entered the body of Haridas. Sometimes we have dual personalities, sometimes we have multiple personalities in one person for the purpose of pastimes. So therefore, the lesson out of this Haridas life is the lesson of humility. That if one becomes humble, one becomes qualified to chant the holy names, and one can achieve the success of tasting the nectar of the holy names. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated by making Haridas the Nama Acharya, the teacher of the holy name. So, so far as these pastimes are concerned, the understanding is that it is not impossible for Brahma to first of all appear as the Brahmana who then became Haridas. And it is not impossible for that Brahmana to appear as Haridas and Brahma entering the body of Haridas. So we have two personalities within Haridas, or even three personalities, or even four personalities. That is also possible. So, but the lesson here is, in both cases, Brahma committed an offense to Lord Krishna and has to take birth as Haridas. And then the Brahmana committed an offense to the deity and has to take birth as Haridas. So there is a common understanding, a common foundation upon which Haridas' next life was based. That in a previous life, he committed an offense, and because of that offense, he took birth in a very humble circumstances, but that did not debar him from becoming a pure devotee. That did not prevent him from achieving an exalted position as Nama Acharya. So the life of Haridas has many lessons to teach. And one of the lessons is that it doesn't matter when we have taken our birth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how low our birth is in this lifetime. And actually that low birth is also said to be a mercy of the Supreme Lord. Because sometimes when we take birth in a very high family, then we tend to be proud. We tend to look down on people. And that is a discredit as far as devotional service is concerned. When we begin looking down on people, looking down on others, Krishna will not give us his mercy. But when we take a humble position, then the mercy flows very quickly. Like Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. It is said that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Ramakeli, that's where Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami were working in the Shah Hussain Wahab's government. When Lord Chaitanya went to them, they grabbed grasses, bunch of grasses, and they kept them in their mouths, and they fell at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to show a sign of humility. And Lord Chaitanya picked them up and embraced them. They were such great ministers, Minister of Finance, a Chief Minister. Rupa Goswami was the Minister of Finance, and Sanatana Goswami was the Chief Minister. Yet these people, they grabbed grasses, put it in between their teeth, and they fell down before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they were describing themselves as very fallen. So because of that humility, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked them up and embraced them. So taking a low birth, as far as Krishna consciousness is concerned, is actually a benediction, because from birth, you are bound to cultivate humility, and that will help you to make progress in Krishna consciousness. So Haridasa's birth as a Muslim, whether he's Brahma or whether he's coming as a Brahman in his last life, the important lesson there is that he was humbled by taking birth in a Muslim family, and due to that humility, he excelled in his devotional service. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, you answered the question.
Thank you very much.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, thank you so much. Shara Prabhu, are you still there? Do you still have a question?
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, okay, please. All right.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you know, this incident is the lesson is good for pujaris too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good for pujaris because you know, devotees, we love Krishna so much.
Mm.
We don't see Krishna. You know,
Yeah.
our gurus, they know Krishna, they see Krishna, they talk to Krishna. But we don't see Krishna. We don't know Krishna.
Yeah.
But we believe our spiritual masters. So we have faith in them that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
So therefore, anywhere devotees stay, even as it's a small place, like a single room, they try to set up deity worship.
Okay.
At the corner of the room, we share with Krishna together.
Okay.
So it's very dangerous, and it's so serious that you can easily make offenses that you will know that you are making offenses.
Okay.
And going to the altar is like going to the engine room. And holding the deities is like you holding a very, 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 very sharp knife.
Yeah.
So it's very good. It's very good for devotees that having deities in their homes and worshiping Krishna. You can
you have to be very careful.
So my question is, if you have some story concerning deity worship,
okay,
if you have time, you can tell us so that we can, those who are having deities in our house, worshiping deities, we are always conscious about what we are doing.
Well, there are many stories, if time will permit. First of all, if we just have a simple altar in our room or in our house, we should have a regulated process. In other words, there should be time for us to offer. There should be time for us to wake them up. There should be time for us to put them to rest. You don't have to follow the temple standard in your house. The temple standard for installed deities is a very high standard. So when we have deities in our homes, we cannot follow that standard in the temple, where there are trained pujaris, qualified pujaris to take care of the deities. But we should have a minimum standard. We should set up a minimum standard and we should follow that standard. If, say, we wake up maybe 5 o'clock or even 6 o'clock, and so we wake our deities at 7 o'clock every day, that's it. We should fix that time for waking the deities at 7 o'clock. And then in a home, we offer food maybe twice a day or whatever number of times a day. We should also have a regular time for offering. Say, for instance, you take your breakfast at 8 o'clock, and so you offer around 7:30. And then maybe you take supper around 5 o'clock, so you offer around 4:30. So you should have some timing, but not the timing of the temple. And then if the deities are in your home, then you must have some curtain, some small curtain, so that when you are sleeping, you can cover the altar so that the deities don't see you sleeping. And you should also have some standard or some program for the deities. For instance, you have to do some worship. Amount of worship you want, 10 minutes, 20 minutes worship, that should also be there. And then yourself and the family members sit together and read something from the scriptures. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that all of these things are part of the sadhana. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, it's the deity worship, chanting the holy name, hearing SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, associating with devotees, and living in a place where Krishna is worshipped, or the holy place where Krishna has performed his pastimes. So your home represents all of these things. You are living with your family members. You have to hear SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. You have to chant your rounds, and you have to associate by having some programs. And then in this way, you have a simplified, very simplified program, but it should be regular. Even if it is once a day, that's okay. If you have time and you make it twice a day, that's okay. But you have a simplified program that does not give you pressure because you have other duties to perform in the home. So you simplify the program, and once you have a simplified program, then you have to follow that program. Because as far as deity worship is concerned, it requires regularity. You have to be regular. If it is once a day, okay, once a day. If it is twice a day, twice a day. So that also regulates your life. You see, whatever we are doing, it is also meant to regulate our lives. So deity worship is important for us as, as neophytes. We are still trying to advance on the path. Even it is said that for the advanced devotee, deity worship is important because people like Vamsidas Babaji. Vamsidas Babaji was one of the very exalted Vaishnava, Bengali Vaishnava. He used to carry his deities wherever he goes. Actually, he doesn't even have any rule for keeping deities. He carries them in a basket. And wherever he goes, he carries his deity in the basket. And when he's in a room, he just put them in one corner. And for him, when he gets some offering, he'll offer to them. If there is no offering, he will go and tell the deities, today I have nothing to offer to you. They said he used to talk with his deities. He used to converse with the deities. He even used to chastise the deities. He used to make fun of the deities. So such exalted people, they even still worship the deities because at that level, they can actually see Krishna in the form of the deity. They can actually communicate with Krishna in the form of the deity. They can exchange with Krishna in the form of the deity. So, but for us who are neophytes, we may not be able to talk to the deity may not talk to us, but we are cultivating the relationship with Krishna by regularly worshiping the deities. So draw up a very simple program that should not place a lot of stress because you have other responsibilities in the family. And then just keep it simple as possible. And then you follow that. And Krishna will be happy with you. I don't know whether what I've said makes some sense.
I think she's very excited for the answer. So I think at this point, we'll bring the class to a closure, and then we continue on the other end. So at this point, we humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and then we chant big Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation for
Thank you so much.
being here.
Hare Krishna,
Jai. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Rama, Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
Pancha Kalpa Yeah, all glories to His grace. Assembled devotees. Hare